The future regional economy will rely heavily on advanced research, clusters of industrial activity, and close cooperation among universities, colleges, companies, and governments. As such, a discussion at the summit will allow us to be able to focus on collaborative practices and successful partnerships between business, academia, community, and government that will be necessary in order for us to continue to build effective networks, initiatives, infrastructure, talent, global opportunities, and design ideas that will lead to more livable communities and resilient regional economy. As our region faces unprecedented growth, such collaborative partnerships will catalyze new economic success. So I'm, of course, thrilled to be joined by their worships from the city of Hamilton, the city of Burlington, the city of Brampton, and the city of Kitchener. Please join me in welcoming our mayor's panel. Okay, so perhaps we'll start with you, Mayor Vrbanovic. I think there's an opportunity to talk about how you see where your community is able to provide value to the innovation corridor from your vantage point. So what are some of the inherent benefits in relation to the corridor that you see from your vantage point and the success of your community and the businesses in your community? And what does that offer the corridor?
In terms of Kitchener and Waterloo region, I mean, as everyone is aware, we're located on the westerly end of the Toronto-Waterloo region corridor, and it really is very much a tech hub that has built up over the years, largely around the existence of our three academic institutions, University of Waterloo, Wilfrid Laurier University, and Conestoga College. And in particular, I think the kind of innovation you see coming out of University of Waterloo, and the fact that as an institution it allows both academics and the students to maintain their own IP as they go forward, and that creates a spirit of innovation and competitiveness, which is outstanding. From a quality of life, I mean, we have communities ranging from 10,000, roughly with our smallest township, to 240,000 in terms of the city of Kitchener, in a region that's sitting at around 575,000. So from a quality of life point of view, it's outstanding in terms of our ability to attract talent. And because of the academic institutions, that talent has really helped us grow the ecosystem from some of our longtime companies that have been in the region, including BlackBerry, to more recently companies like Google, Vidyard, Thalmic, and others. But I think the last point that I would make is, and it's a theme that's been talked about all day here, is this theme of collaboration. And I think one of the things that we're probably best known for in Waterloo region is that spirit of collaboration. Former Governor General David Johnston often talked about it in the context of the barn-raising spirit that exists in Waterloo region. And for those of you who know the Mennonite community and how they come together to build a barn after it's been burnt down, it's very much the approach that exists within our private sector, our not-for-profit sector, academic institutions, the three levels of government, in helping drive the whole tech ecosystem that really anchors that westerly end of the corridor.
That's a good introduction. Thank you, Mayor Vrbanovic. I'll swing to the other side of the stage with you, Mayor Eisenberger. What are some of the inherent value props that your community is able to offer the corridor?
So thank you, and thank you for doing this. As Barry said, it's a great opportunity to talk about kind of our shared interest in advancing the region as a regional economy. I think that's a very important message coming out of this, that we are competing against pretty significant regional economies around the world, and so how we position ourselves collectively is going to be very important in terms of how we're able to compete with those other economies. Hamilton has much of the same kind of effort going on. We have the Innovation Park and the Forge, and a lot of ongoing research in terms of new ideas, new products, new companies that are springing up in the tech sector specifically. really getting introduced to the new kind of business environment through the Forge, and having the Innovation Center and the Innovation Factory actually help and assist those companies to become more viable and grow as part of that. And of course, being part of the Advanced Manufacturing Supercluster was a real opportunity for us to really expand the marriage between technology and advanced manufacturing, which is going to be so very important throughout our region. And Hamilton would be one of the areas where manufacturing is kind of our mainstay in terms of what we do. So we see a lot of technological opportunity. We were delighted to be, as Kitchener-Waterloo once was, selected as a top 7 intelligent community in the world, because we are collaborating, using technology and data in a very creative and effective way, and really looking to have all of our major institutions working together to find ways of providing those new data and technological opportunities that we need to kind of work on. And that then translates into how do we collaborate with all of our partner communities, Burlington, Brampton, Kitchener-Waterloo, Toronto, and how do we use those alliances to share knowledge and advance the cause for the entire region even more. So I think that's the art of the corridor. I think we see ourselves as a very significant part of that, as should Burlington and Brampton and others in between. And we all have something to give and offer in terms of where we're going to take all of this.
Great. I'll turn it over to you, Mayor Jeffrey. Some of the inherent benefits that your community is able to offer the corridor.
Well, obviously we're in the middle, so it's always good to be in the middle. And we think that's a pretty unique position to be. Close proximity to Pearson Airport, obviously connected to all of the highways, and we're home to CN Intermodal Terminal, which sees about 60% of the railway's total volume. I represent a community that continues to grow, which is always good if you're looking for skilled workers. 600,000, we're projected to grow to 1 million in the next 25 years. Our transit actually grew last year by 17%. So I don't know too many communities where that kind of double-digit growth is going on. Very young population, very diverse, very well educated. So whenever I travel, much as many of these other mayors on the stage do, people are looking for that skilled talent pool close to transit. So I think we are very lucky. We have Sheridan College, which also has Center for Advanced Manufacturing Design Technologies. They work with about 900 of our companies in the city of Brampton. And if you haven't heard the news, Ryerson is building its first campus outside the city of Toronto in Brampton. And we're looking to initiate a national center for cybersecurity, which will help us with public safety, whether it's banking, whether it's policing, whether it's healthcare. So we think we have some pretty exciting initiatives happening in the city of Brampton, and we think that's why we're successful on the corridor with our partners.
Fantastic. Okay, Mayor Golden, over to you.
Well, thank you very much. And first of all, welcome to Burlington. We are actually in the city of Burlington. We look at the Royal Botanical Gardens. It's like Switzerland, because it's an asset that both Hamilton and Burlington share. So we're glad that we're back here again this year. You know, Burlington's in a unique position at the western end of Lake Ontario, with the border with Hamilton and Oakville on the other side, and Milton to the north. We're in a unique position that we're 185 square kilometers, and we are finished with traditional suburban development for the most part. We don't have any more room to build single-family homes, again, for the most part. So we're focusing our new development in and around our GO stations. We're fortunate in our city. We have 3 GO stations on the Lakeshore Go West line, which ultimately will go from 15-minute all-day service. It's obviously better than that at the peaks. We're going to go start from 30-minute service. In 6.5 years will be 15-minute service along the Lakeshore Go West line. And one of the things we need to collaborate on together is pushing GO to expand to the other communities, because Kitchener and Brampton and Hamilton don't have the same service that we do in Burlington. So we want to push that, because that's going to benefit all of us. We need to consider the fact that the Greater Toronto-Hamilton area, so Kitchener is just outside that, the Greater Toronto-Hamilton area right now is about 7 million people. And because we welcome 300,000 or so newcomers into Canada each and every year, and about 40 to 50% of those folks want to come to the GTHA. So we know that in the next within 25 years, The GTHA will be 10 million people. And we all have to assume our share of the growth. In Burlington's case, our growth will be in and around our GO stations and in our downtown, creating mixed-use, compact, walkable, transit-supportive neighborhoods. So when we're looking at how we're going to deal with transportation going forward, that may be a question, maybe I'm answering it too soon. How we build our cities is critically important. Because if we're going to continue to build suburban development where you need to drive and burn a liter of gas to get a liter of milk, we're in trouble. We need to look at how we build our cities differently. One last thing I will leave it with for now is Burlington's very pleased that a year ago we opened up a place called Tech Place. Our Burlington Economic Development Corporation recognized we have a lot of entrepreneur-led technology businesses in Burlington that weren't really growing significantly. So we created Tech Place as an opportunity for entrepreneur-led technology-based firms to get the mentoring and the financing that they need in order to expand and grow. And one of the best referrals we got was from Communitech in Kitchener for a company to come down and reside in Burlington. So I look forward to more discussion. Thank you.
Working together, transportation corridors, data, advanced technologies, advanced manufacturing. So maybe I'll direct this next question to Mayor Jeffrey first. What do you believe are some of the opportunities to catalyze sort of public and private collaboration? You talked about traveling, which I thought was really good. And so, you know, all of us have a going global agenda. We do as a Chamber of Commerce in Guelph. I think the city and the Brampton Board of Trade have one. I know KW has one, of course. And we all view this as a unique opportunity. How do we collaborate as public and private to sell the innovation corridor globally?
I think I just came back from the BIO conference in Boston with a team from our Economic Development Office, and I would say people have no idea we're up here. If you go down to the US, they have no idea. Even when I've been in New York State, they know more about Quebec than they do about Ontario. So I think the challenge for us is we're always, as mayors, competing for those companies. But the companies that we're chatting with have no idea where the boundaries lie, what services we have. So collectively, we have to work together. So one of the things we did this past year was we were part of the Amazon bid. The City of Brampton was part of the Toronto Global bid. And I have to say, at the beginning, it was really difficult because the mayors were all competing. You know, I want to be on this part of the book, and I want to be on this part of the book. At the end of the day, we collectively, as mayors, were able to put together a bid book that it was for Amazon, but about 50,000 people have downloaded that bid book. So it wasn't just about Amazon. It was about other people looking at Southern Ontario and communities along the Super Innovation Corridor looking for places to find skilled workers or opportunities to grow their business or build a footprint into Canada. So I would say we need to seize opportunities where we can work collaboratively because investment sees no boundaries. They want the talent pool that we have in Ontario. And you know, I went to a cybersecurity conference a couple of weeks ago, and almost everybody in the room was going offshore to hire. Everyone. There was no talent that they could get in that specific sector. So I think we have the talent pool. We have the young community. We have the diversity. We have the education standards here in Canada. We underestimate how strong, how powerful the Canadian brand is. I think it's something to build on.
You know, how do we work on selling the innovation corridor globally as a place that companies want to invest and as a place that can attract companies and talent?
Well, I mean, I think the corridor has to come together and can develop that kind of collective strategy. I think there's two elements of it. I mean, you know, as you're prone to compete, I think municipalities are not going to stop competing. The question is, how do we vision on the regional benefit of the tech corridor that we're talking about, and how do we develop that kind of independent strategy that can work on that, as we all work on our individual little silos on you know, our own little sphere of influence. So, you know, for Hamilton, we've identified some of our own key strategic countries where we think there are opportunities based on the industry that we have here. So Colombia was one of them, and we partnered with Niagara to look at specifically Colombia and the opportunities that are there, both for companies going there and vice versa. Colombia is now a South American company that's coming out of some very difficult economic challenges, and is now looking. Some of the businesses are now looking for a safe haven to invest their earnings and their companies, and they see Canada as one of those opportunities, both on the tech side as well as transportation, logistics, and manufacturing. So I think all municipalities today are much more interested in doing their own foreign direct investment rather than waiting for the provincial junket or the Canadian junket that goes to a particular country that they've defined as an opportunity. So we're doing our own work in terms of finding those collective opportunities, but we need a kind of collective, overarching corridor tech strategy that really speaks to elements that we can participate in that will allow us to advance the corridor as a whole and still have that kind of competitive element built into it on our own local municipality basis.
That's great. I love the piece on collaboration. Chambers of Commerce often speak about businesses not really knowing boundaries, and to hear the mayors talk about offering that same sentiment. I think to both Mayor Verbanovic and Mayor Golding, I'll offer the last question as well, and perhaps you can wrap your answer together with this going global piece. The Amazon bid showed us, businesses, Chambers of Commerce, private sector, that municipalities have the capacity to work together. There were bid books put together that involved numerous communities. It wasn't everybody in the corridor, but it involved numerous communities. It was a real demonstration that municipalities could work together. How do we use that experience moving forward? Maybe I'll start with you, Mayor Verbanovic, and then come over to you, Mayor Golding.
Sure. I think combining the two questions together, the reality is that as a region, in terms of this corridor, we're not competing so much against ourselves as we are competing against San Francisco to San Jose, London to Cambridge, Tel Aviv to Haifa, and to a certain degree even Vancouver down to Seattle. Those are the entities that we're competing with, and as long as we can get the jobs and the people into this corridor, then I think we all benefit both directly and indirectly as we go forward. I think the other thing that we need to remember, and the Amazon bid is an example of it, that there is not a consistent approach around collaboration that always has to exist. In the case of the Amazon bid, Toronto Global led that, and we certainly supported it in terms of our Waterloo Region Economic Development Corporation. But that was different than, for example, the supercluster proposal that went forward, which was much broader in nature, took a different approach, was obviously business-led, but it included more communities, because that was the right answer at that time. At other times, when we got this whole idea of the corridor going, Mayor Tory and the three mayors from Waterloo Region went down to California together and worked together, and that was an initial trip. I think those are the kinds of things we can grow in the future, but it just demonstrates that the model of collaboration needs to make sense for each and every initiative that we undertake, and that's what we need to focus on, and just figure out what those ways are and do as much of that as possible.
It's interesting, Burlington is part of the Greater Toronto Area along with Brampton. So both Brampton and Burlington were part of the Amazon bid for Toronto Global, which was 10 sites across the Greater Toronto region. But then we're right next door to Hamilton, and Hamilton put together its bid, and we participated in the bid financially, so we have a foot in both areas. So I think we can collaborate extremely well. One of the challenges we have is the fact that the four of us here are not connected. We don't share governance in any way. Brampton's part of Peel Region, Kitchener part of Waterloo, Hamilton's a single tier on its own, and we're part of Halton. But I do believe when opportunities arise, and Amazon's a great example of that, and then what Mayor Tory reached out to KW to go down to California, I do believe when opportunities arise, communities that have similar interests can get together. I tend to look at the collaboration really as co-opetition. And anybody a NASCAR fan? Anybody? I'm a NASCAR fan. So what happens is the four teams owned by one owner, they collaborate all the time during the week, and then they get on the track on Sunday. They even collaborate for the first 90% of the race, and then the last 10% of the race were on their own. I think that's the way it is really with municipalities working together. We want to help each other, and we know when one wins, we all win. If Hamilton would have got Amazon, Burlington would have won big time, and so would have the rest of the GTHA as well as KW. And I think that's a good example that we know that there are companies that can be drawn to one of our cities that would have a significant economic ripple effect that would benefit us all.
We have the opportunity to think about what our next steps are. We've talked about collaboration. Mayor Vrbanovic, I really liked your point about there isn't a single model for what collaboration will look like. But we can advocate together. There is great power in numbers. We have a new provincial government, and there will likely be an opportunity to present our issues collectively. What sort of joint advocacy do you believe there is an opportunity for us to do as an innovation corridor?
I think an obvious organization that we're all part of is something that we could start with. And Linda's actually chair of the Large Urban Mayors Caucus of Ontario. And we meet 2 or 3 times a year, depending on what the issues are. So certainly we can have a much more economic development focus when we meet with the other mayors. The challenge is it's the Ontario big city mayors, and it's not just this particular area, it's all across the province. But there is a component of us that would be the West GTA or the Innovation Corridor that we could spin out something from the Large Urban Mayors Caucus and have a specific discussion about how we might collaborate with the corridor.
That's great. Mayor Jeffrey, thoughts on joint advocacy?
Stole my thunder. But I would say, no matter who's in government, economic driving, business cases help pique everybody's interest. And certainly we talked before the election about our concerns about not relying on big cities to drive business. We're where the rubber hits the road. We're the place where all of your business gets serviced and whether your employees can get to and from work. So we can be helpful on those big transit opportunities. And certainly I think the Supercluster Initiative was extraordinary, bringing all kinds of chambers together who had never worked so collaboratively before. So I think there are opportunities for us to be initiators, but I think whoever's in power, those conversations with regards to a strong business case sell no matter who's sitting in the seat. And I think we have a very receptive, just think of who's in Queen's Park now. Most of them have never sat in government before. This is going to be a huge learning curve for them. So we have an opportunity to educate them as to what our priorities are now.
Rick mentioned it earlier, transportation connectivity, whether we're talking about two-way all-day go between all of our communities, including Toronto, is key, as well as awaiting the outcome of the high-speed rail EA and making sure that the new provincial government understands that about the importance of moving people and doing it quickly. And then the second one is really understanding that the role the provincial government has in partnering with business, and particularly in terms of encouraging innovation. We need to remain competitive with other jurisdictions in the United States and around the world that are supporting that in their own jurisdictions. We need to make sure that we don't lose sight of that going forward.
So I'm really in line with what Mayor Goldring said about using the alliance that we already have in terms of the mayors that are meeting on a fairly regular basis on some of the provincial issues, and we have that same effort going on at the big city mayors across the country, actually, in Barrie and Linden, and I sit on that, and I think it's a very effective way of coming together. And I would say respectfully that let's make room for everyone at the table that has an interest in this. So we all have our universities and colleges that Mohawk College working awfully hard in the tech and knowledge sector. Let's have room for Toronto, Hamilton, Brampton, Kitchener, Waterloo, and Burlington as part of the corridor, and really start working collaboratively as municipalities on advancing the cause. And I say this respectfully because it's known as the Kitchener-Toronto, Kitchener-Waterloo-Toronto corridor. Well, in fact, there's many municipalities in between, and we all feel that we're very much a part of this. And I think we ought to kind of acknowledge that, and then continue to work on advancing the very important work that we need to do to kind of collaborate and make good value out of our good collaboration that we're going to continue to work on.
Excellent. Please give the mayors up here a wonderful round of applause for